If you follow me on social media, and if you don't, why don't you? Then you'll know the scheduling and release problems I've had over the past couple of months. For the majority of this year, I have attempted and succeeded at releasing a new video once every 2 weeks. I know compared to a lot of my peers, once every 2 weeks still seems rather pitiful, but trust me, in my life that is busting my butt. Granted, a lot of that probably has to do with my computer, and a couple of months ago, my computer finally got to the point where it was just no longer possible to edit on it while still keeping my sanity. So I finally had to bite the bullet and switch my workflow over to my MacBook, which is what I'd always planned to do when I had the time and money to work on it. This forced me to fast track it. Long story short, there were RAM upgrades, finding similar compatible software, all that fun stuff. So that's the reason there were so many Mario RPG videos in a row. I mean, hey, I think they're fun and you should definitely check them out, but I would never have chosen to put out 3 in a row. I just needed some content for my channel, and I also needed very simple videos to help me get my legs back when it came to Final Cut Pro because, believe it or not, it's changed substantially since I was trained on it in college, 10 years ago. And I'm still getting used to it. The World's Strongest Guy was my first attempt at handling Dragon Ball dissection this way, and I think it turned out alright. But please be patient. I know ultimately all this better tech will benefit the channel once I master all of it. I can already tell you I throw fewer temper tantrums now that I'm editing on a computer I don't have to keep an ice tray under at all times. So, Zarbon is desperately scouring the outside of his ship for any signs of Vegeta, while Freeza acts out the part of the micromanaging boss who stands right behind him telling him how to do it, and threatening to kill him. Just like my bosses. Vegeta, however, is still trapped inside the ship. He's found the Dragon Balls, but now he doesn't know what to do with them. And this is why I like that the Namekian Dragon Balls are so big. He can't just waltz out with all 5 of them in tow, even if he had 2 under his shirt like they were boobs. It adds yet another layer to this 3-way race that the objects everyone is looking for are so difficult to hide and move. So Vegeta takes a calculated risk. The only way to get the Dragon Balls outside of the ship is to divert Zarbon's and Frieza's attention away from the outside of the ship. So he has to let them know he's still inside the ship, which is rather risky since Frieza can, kill him in an instant. So Vegeta fires a huge blast down the corridor after giving away his location so that the ensuing smoke and wreckage will mask his getaway. In the chaos, he blasts a hole through the window and hurls the Dragon Balls out. And then, for good measure, rather than flying away, he swims away so as to avoid detection. He even threw the balls with enough precision that he's able to quickly regather them. Then, as if that huge boon of skill and luck wasn't enough, Crudian just happens to fly past him, his own Dragon Ball clearly visible. Crudian wasn't taking a calculated risk. He was just being an idiot, having let his newly released power go to his head. And since that new power isn't enough to make him rival Vegeta, that means his power-up was actually less than useful, and at least at this moment he would have been better off without it. Vegeta gives chase after the final Dragon Ball. Zarbon spots both of them and also speeds after them, and Vegeta notices him, but he doesn't care. This sequence of events, Vegeta's big upset of Frieza's advantage, is probably one of his finest moments, if not the finest. It is cunning and daring. He took advantage of a very bad situation and now has completely taken Frieza out of the Dragon Ball game. And now the one advantage the Earthlings had over him, that they had concealed their presence from him, has now evaporated. Vegeta is just so completely awesome in these couple of chapters, it's hard to imagine how he can possibly lose now. But luck favors no one person for too much. Vegeta hid his first Dragon Ball under the supposition that he was only hiding it from scouters, which would never be able to find the ball underwater. But Gohan and Bulma noticed the ball still present on the radar after Vegeta left the village, and assuming Vegeta never found it and gave up, Gohan has gone to the village and retrieved it. So the game is shifting again. And that's what I love about this part of the arc. It just takes one little mistake or one little twist to throw everything into disarray. So the moment after Crudian returns to their camp with the Dragon Ball, Vegeta and Zarbon arrive too. The only way this could get worse for him is if a face-hugging crab hatched from the Dragon Ball. Bulma assumes Zarbon is the good guy until he transforms again, which shows that Bulma believes that good is naturally beautiful and evil is naturally ugly. Well, it would certainly explain why she fell for Yamcha even as he was trying to kill her group. But even though Zarbon is transformed, Vegeta is not concerned. In fact, it's such an easy fight he can still manage to keep Crudian and Bulma escaping at the same time. Because the ultimate irony is that healing Vegeta to find out where he hid his Dragon Ball not only allowed him to steal their Dragon Balls, but it gave him the strength boost to kill Zarbon, since Saiyans boost their powers tremendously after suffering near-death injuries. So after disposing of Zarbon in a most gruesome fashion, Vegeta finally turns his attention to Crudian. This whole sequence drips tension because Vegeta has them. There is no way to escape, no way they're going to fend off the guy who just blew away Zarbon like a wet paper bag. And Vegeta has a reputation for not exactly being the most merciful guy. How can they possibly get out of this one? Well, Vegeta's in such a good mood at the thought of getting the last Dragon Ball that he actually promises not to harm them as long as they hand over the Dragon Ball. He even bumps into Gohan on the way back from stealing his Dragon Ball, and Vegeta lets him off with a knead of the stomach and a little bit of sweet nothings in his ear. But even with this kinder, gentler Vegeta, it's terrifying, because you know they're just moments away from the other shoe dropping. The Vegeta could realize at any moment his stolen Dragon Ball is just a few feet away from him, that Gohan's supposed watch is actually a Dragon Ball detecting radar, that all that good luck of his has finally run out, that he just got totally and completely duped by his prey who have already hightailed it far away from the cave he'd happily left them at. But since he now knows his opponents have radar, he can't leave his hiding spot to look for them because he's afraid they'll steal the rest of his Dragon Balls while he's gone. Actually, Krudurian isn't terribly interested in that. Instead, he wants to take Gohan to the Grand Elder. He reasons that once Gohan's power is unlocked, he might be strong enough to rival Vegeta. Bulma complains that this crevice they dropped her in now is too narrow for her to set up a capsule house, and at this point in the story, Bulma officially becomes the load. If there was any narrative potential in her coming along, any skill set she could use that her companions don't have, you can kiss all of that goodbye. From here on out, she will stay in this crevice and contribute nothing other than a few cutaways of her complaining. She, likewise, will have no idea what transpires after this moment. In fact, her friends will only interact with her 3 more times before they leave the planet. They come back to get the Dragon Ball, and run off without explaining anything. They come back to get the Dragon Radar, and run off explaining hardly anything. And Gohan retrieves her to take her off the planet. It is just such a waste of her character, and even though I've endured her in larger doses in the first arc, I have to say this might be Bulma at her most annoying. I mean, first she complains that she has to stay here with them, then when they say they're leaving, she complains that they're leaving her alone, and I just really wish that Toriyama had thought through why he was bringing her on this mission in the first place. Because even in an arc where the cast has been scaled back to a manageable size, Bulma is a complete waste of space. And I honestly find it miraculous that after the last few arcs hardly used her at all, this didn't signal the death knell for her character entirely, but somehow she comes back from this to get better roles for the rest of the series and beyond. After all the stunning upsets we've just witnessed, it's smart of the story to take a breather right here, with all the various factions engaging in something of a forced armistice. Gohan and Krudurian are keeping a low profile to get to the Grand Elders, Vegeta's keeping a low profile to guard his Dragon Balls and sense Gohan and Krudurian, and there's little Freeza can do to retake the Dragon Balls until the Ginyu arrive with scouters. Gohan and Krudurian have been taking it really easy on their journey. Since Krudurian's last cross-continental trip ended with Vegeta catching him, he wants to be very careful not to repeat the same mistake. So his plan is, you have to admire it, is to repeat the same mistake. After a few days of roughing it, Krudurian figures that the Grand Elder is probably close to death, and they're probably far enough from Vegeta that he won't sense them if they really start to book it. Of course, the problem is that he's heading to the same place that he was coming from, where Vegeta visually spotted him before. And the sad thing is, you can defend this, that Krudurian wouldn't have known he was making the same mistake, but only because he wasn't paying attention the first time and therefore had no idea when Vegeta even spotted him. Needless to say, this doesn't have the same level of success as Vegeta's calculated risks have had, and Vegeta arrives very quickly to tell them that. Going after Gohan and Krudurian was a calculated risk for Vegeta, but he at least took one Dragon Ball with him, just in case someone found his hiding spot. Krudurian sends Gohan ahead and discards his backpack. I guess Namek doesn't adhere to campground rules. Take nothing but photographs, leave nothing but footprints. Then again, Vegeta immediately spots the obvious house and just does a quick end run around Krudurian, but Gohan has already gotten his power up and it is so drastic that Vegeta assumes the power he senses is Goku's. But before the epic throwdown can begin, Dende delivers the news that 5 powerful beings are heading towards the planet. Vegeta panics, realizing it's the Ginyu, and bargains that he'll leave them in peace if they give him the Dragon Ball, as making him immortal is the only chance they all have at surviving. Unsurprisingly, Krudurian is rather reluctant to hand over immortality to one of their greatest enemies and suggests using Gohan instead. Leaving aside the ethical questions of pressuring a 5-year-old child into accepting eternal life, I like the point Vegeta brings up. He says that while Gohan may have the power, he doesn't have the combat experience. And I wish this was something that the series would have taken more to heart. I much prefer the idea that immortality isn't a be-all, end-all ultimate weapon, even if the series tends to disagree with me. Then again, Vegeta could just be playing on their fears to get them to give him what he wants, but even Zarbon had said to Vegeta that immortality alone wouldn't be enough to defeat Freeza. But Krudurian still wrestles with the idea that if they do this, they can Namek for nothing. In fact, it's less than nothing because they'd be helping the guy who was responsible for killing his friends in the first place. Finally, Nail delivers the clinching argument. Why does this even matter? The Dragon Balls grant 3 wishes so they could give Vegeta immortality and still have 2 wishes left. So with that, it's settled, and an unlikely alliance is formed. After they leave, the Grand Elder even tells Nail to go after them and help out. So he does, and I'm sure this will prove very important and not just go nowhere. Before we close out, let's take a look at Goku. He's pushed himself all the way to 100 times Earth's gravity, and he's even pelting himself with his own Kamehamehas, then using Senzu to recover from his injuries. To his credit, he does save 3 Senzu at the end of his training, although it's never explicitly said that would be enough to heal all 3 of his friends if need be. What the narration does explain, though, is that he's unknowingly taking advantage of exactly what Vegeta has been bragging about, the Saiyan ability to gain strength after recovering from near death. And I think that is an important addition because, frankly, Goku has a lot of ground to cover in a short amount of time to find himself in a position to still be competitive. The extreme gravity is definitely a plausible means of doing so, but not enough on its own. But that it would tear him apart is also plausible, so it seems convenient but not too convenient that he would find himself in this situation. But you want to know something that does come across as too convenient? Goku has torn up the uniform he put on last week. Again, fairly plausible considering what he's been doing, so he just puts on a new one. And this one once again changes up his kanji. Both the front and back now sport the Go kanji, as in the Go in Goku. So you could say that Goku has now become his own master. I know a lot of people say that. But I don't really see how his 6 days in a spaceship have made him his own master any more than, say, the 3 years he spent training on his own. But it's not like it really matters, because it's apparently not a decision Goku made for himself. When Goku pulls it out of a sack, he says that Kaio sent it to him while he was in the hospital. Despite going out of his way on the last 2 uniforms to sneak his own kanji in there without Goku noticing, I wonder if he ever noticed, come to think of it. Now he's completely backpedaled and giving Goku complete credit. But what is even with this? The hospital? We already saw the uniform Kaio gave Goku in the hospital. It's the torn up one he just changed out of. So where did this even come from? He didn't take this sack with him when he left the hospital because we see he doesn't take anything with him but the bag of Senzu. He goes straight from the hospital to the ship and immediately takes off, so there's no opportunity for him to get this uniform at any point in between. I suppose there are a few possibilities. Maybe Kaio gave him this uniform first, and when Dr. Brief visited, Goku handed off the uniform knowing he'd need one for outer space. But then he realized he didn't have any clothes anymore, so he asked Kaio for another one. But then you have to explain why Kaio came up with a new design only to go back to the old one, or maybe Goku did have it on him when he left the hospital. Maybe Kaio has some kind of god capsule. But my personal favorite theory is that it's a uniform of infinite regress. Inside of the first uniform was a complete brand new uniform, and if Goku had kept at it, he would have found another uniform inside that uniform, and so on, and so on, and so on. It would even explain why we see Krillin wearing it for a couple of panels later on. It's not a huge deal, I guess. Clearly Toriyama wrote himself into a corner, getting Goku into a spaceship with no change of clothes, and he's not just gonna have Goku go to a new location in tattered clothes. That would just be silly. I just don't understand why Toriyama went out of his way to specify the one location that made the least sense. I mean, why not just say Kaio sent it to him in space? He already knows he's there. At any rate, Goku is now determined to stand here for the next 7 chapters until he arrives at Namek. Or at least that's what Toriyama wants you to think. Because Goku clearly moves at some point when he realizes he forgot to put on the new boots with dangly ends that Kaio sent him. And apparently Goku likes the dangly ends enough that he continues to wear boots like this for the rest of the series, and even retroactively to earlier parts of the series. Clearly you guys keep coming to Dragon Ball Dissection for engaging discussion on topics of such monumental import as the dangly things on Goku's boots. As such, I am proud to announce another year of Dragon Ball Dissection December. In case you're new to the program, every year I run a weekly marathon of Dragon Ball Dissection videos through the month of December, ending on Christmas Day. Or once on New Year's Eve. You never know, and neither do I. But the point is you get a whole month of me going into excruciating detail on necessary topics like minor scouter design inconsistencies, and the details of Rickum's butt. Don't you just feel so lucky? At any rate, Dragon Ball Dissection December continues next week with the Freeza arc part 6. See you there!